Living Arrangements Between 1870 and 1930 in Fresno, California, presented by Group K.
It was the city of Fresno because it was one of the earliest cities to be erected in the far west of the United States. The city had close ties to railroads, an important industry during the late 19th century, oversaw the mining and agriculture industry, and housing reflected changing times, economic statuses, and rise of improved technology.
In November 1929, Senator Wilbur F. Chandler donated Chandler Field, a 100-acre site, as an official airfield to address the lack of aviation facilities in the area. Fresno Normal School and Fresno High School contributed to the growth in the residential community. Contractor John G. Porter created the required two-story blueprints for a majority of the Porter Tract homes. The Wilson Island was first developed in 1908 by Rosanna C. Wilson and her son A. Paulette Wilson. Wilson Island, a term that refers to the construction of the districting into a P shape, was home to Fresno's elite. This marked the shift towards suburbia that reinforced the ideas of high status, education, and a strong sense of community.
There were several notable housing styles characteristic of the 1870 to 1930 time period in Fresno. Main housing styles included working-class tank homes and Victorian-style homes. At the turn of the 20th century, the more popular styles included the American four-square style with its box structure and the Craftsman style, which resembled a bungalow. These various housing styles were created by different technologies. In terms of materials, wood and later stone and brick were widely used for foundation and other support purposes. Other technologies include the agricultural colony system, irrigation canals, and the streetcar, which impacted the locations and styles of the housing.
Of urbanization growth of Fresno County, there became a need for houses and living quarters. The manual laborers who constructed these houses were comprised of three major groups: Chinese American, African Americans, and Hispanics. There were no mixing of the workforce as it relates to racial groups. Groups were overseen daily by the head architectural designer of the buildings to ensure accuracy while building.
To figure out why people chose Fresno, there are a few questions that we have to ask ourselves, including: what was the area like in terms of climate? What were some of the natural resources that were found in the area? What was the economy like at the time? Who lived there? How easy was it to live there? And how did people get around while they lived there?
The average temperatures range from 37 degrees to 96.6 degrees. There is no snowfall on average. The average rainfall Fresno receives is 10.9 inches compared to the U.S. average of 36.5. It is typically sunny, but it is also dry. The Mediterranean climate made it possible to have multiple housing types because it did not need to protect against elements such as snowstorms or tornadoes. The individuals in Fresno had a variety of building materials available to them. There was wood produced in the Fresno County mills from the Sierra National Forest. The county also produced large amounts of stone, such as granite and paving blocks. Any materials that they could not extract from the area were potentially still available due to the county's proximity to the railroad. This helps explain the variety in housing.
The city of Fresno was very prosperous from its beginning. The reason was attributed to its booming agricultural economy. With the introduction of irrigation, vineyards were being planted throughout the valley, producing grapes to make raisins, one of Fresno's earliest and largest industry. Fresno continued to succeed with the fig and cotton industries, and to this day is one of the nation's leading agroeconomies. In 1887, 337 deeds were sold during the month of April, and by November of the same year, over 1,000 deeds had been filed with the county. Due to Fresno's large agricultural economy, the majority of the population consisted of the working class. However, unlike most cities during this time, the upper middle and working class all resided in the same or nearby areas and were not segregated.
Fresno's demographic did not consist of the economic risk takers that other California towns had as a result of coming about during the gold rush. In fact, Fresno was considered uninhabitable until about 1874, when the county seat was relocated from Millerton to Fresno because of its proximity to the railroad system. A year later, the population was only about 600, a third of which were the Chinese immigrants who helped with the railroad construction. The introduction of irrigation turned Fresno into an agricultural center where crops like raisins, peaches, and figs made the city increasingly prosperous. The town attracted immigrants from many different cultures seeking work as farm laborers. Fresno came to be advertised as colonies of self-contained units with ample water to grow crops and raise a family, a promotion which surely impacted the type of demographic attracted to the town.
From its founding as a railroad town during 1872, we find Fresno as a rich architectural legacy with a significantly different housing pattern. In opposition to the social and economic segregation across the country between 1884 and 1910, we find that upper, middle, and working class families resided closely within this northern area of the city. Prior to the boom of 1911, housing was easy to acquire due to the relatively inexpensive pricing of land and low startup costs. The standard lot could be sold for as low as $62. Upon the commercial boom, prices shot up and ranged from $150 to $300. Although still significantly accessible due to the agricultural success of the city, residents noticed the economic effect.
As the population of Fresno grew, so did the need for effective transportation. To fill that need, a horse-drawn trolley system was developed in 1887, and the city continued to use this system until around 1920. There were many initial franchises given, but only a select few completed the job of developing the system for the growing city. The city of Fresno continued expansion north, and this required the development of more trolley lines. The Fresno City Rail was introduced in 1902, followed shortly thereafter by 2 additional lines. Each of these lines was originally single-tracked, but they would later become double-tracked to maintain a system that kept up with the growing population.
We're in Fresno in this time marked the birth of a new frontier town. The discovery of gold field led to the upsurge in immigrants to the area seeking work. Work was centered around manual labor, such being mining of gold, railroad and building construction, and small farming. Labor at the time was cheap and also taxing to human body. Many people fell ill due to inappropriate work conditions.
There were different aspects that contributed to the housing choices made in Fresno, California during this time period. Our group asked questions regarding Fresno's climate, available resources, economic opportunities, accessibility, and housing technologies to better understand Fresno housing.